Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is one of the funniest actors, writers, and podcasters around. You can now see him in the hilarious Showtime show, Black Monday, where Paul Scheer plays a closeted stock trader in a time when pretty much everyone was terrible, the 1980s on Wall Street. Let's take a look. Everybody, please welcome Paul Scheer. Let's hear it.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much.
Oh,
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you.
And I think my goal for this interview is to make sure we say very controversial things so we get a lot of click-throughs, right? I mean, that's what you need to do. You need like
hey, you want
Paul
headlines.
was at the AOL Build studio, and he said that he will challenge anyone to shirtless wrestling in the Flatiron District. Like,
That's
big,
good.
We'll start there and we'll just keep on building, and whatever is clickbait worthy.
That's good. Let's start right there. Shirtless wrestling in the meatpacking district.
Yeah, I'll do it in the meatpacking district. It's much grosser there. Yeah, I mean, to get on the ground like that, terrible.
Like near the West Side Highway, basically, like almost next to the West Side Highway. Just someone rolls into it, it's dangerous.
One of my worst jobs ever. When I first started in New York, I did the Conan O'Brien show, and you would do these like little pieces on the show. And we were dressed as like Hare Krishnas, and the idea was like we were running down the street, and we all had to lay down in the meatpacking district. When the meatpacking district was not cool, it was just like a place where like animals' blood was like lining the street.
It was literally the meatpacking district.
It was disgusting, and I remember just laying like naked, almost naked in like a toga on the ground, being like, I've made it, and just smelling like blood and the disgusting New York City street. It was so terrible.
One of my first jobs was interning at Troma, and I had to wear the Toxic Avenger costume.
Oh, yeah,
around Times Square. But the costume was literally fished out of their Times Square basement, and I'm pretty sure it was filled with mold and asbestos all on the inside, and I was running around Times Square just...
But oddly, that costume is better than most of the people in 42nd Street right now, like the Mickey Mouse costumes and stuff like that.
I was still going, don't touch me, even with that costume on.
Well, look, it's truthfulness in advertising. That was a toxic suit, and you were the Toxic Avenger.
Fair enough, yeah. Paul, I love the show. I'm such
by the
a
way,
fan.
and just so you guys know, this is the poster for Black Monday, and I'm on it. Oh man,
Wait,
they used a poster. They used a poster where Don blocked me. I'm standing right here, and he walked right in front of. I hate that they just walk right in front of me. They were supposed to be like, "Hey, don't block him." I got to talk to Don about that.
This show, produced by Seth Rogen and Evan, right? Who you've worked with before a number of times. I think?
So Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg produced the show. They also directed the pilot.
Right.
And I've worked with them a bunch on shows like Future Man. I just did this movie Long Shot with Seth, and I feel like those guys have given me so many great opportunities. Disaster Artist. I'm probably blanking on a bunch of other ones too.
Right, and so they come to you with this, and when you read the pilot, what did you first think?
Well, it was interesting. The pilot for this, my character was a 60-year-old man. And so they were like, hey, we're thinking about playing around with this character. Would you have any take on it? And I really just kind of love this character because it's something I don't get to actually do that much. It's a comedy show that has actually really hard jokes, but it also has this kind of dramatic element to it. And I can kind of see a little bit in that scene that you just saw, where it's like you get the serialized nature of a show like Better Call Saul, but then you also have the hard jokes that you like from a show like Happy Endings or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's constantly raising the stakes in each episode and driving a larger story forward, while at the same time it's a really fine line to walk too, because the jokes don't necessarily pull you out of that story, but they're almost there.
Well, yeah, we try to make the show walk this line, so it doesn't seem like the characters are the jokes are in the world. One of the first things that Seth and Evan were talking about when we were doing the pilot was we can never appear like we're making jokes. We have to have our characters say them. We have to do it in a way where it doesn't feel written or writerly, So it's these characters can make jokes in their world, but it's not like a writer putting jokes in our mouth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like Veep-like in a way. Just sort of the jokes have to come out, and there's no sort of big hammy addressing of the punchline.
Right. It's not wait. It's like you say your joke and then hold for it. Yeah. So that's
your character, I think, has I think the most interesting arc of anybody on this season right now.
Much. Yeah.
Not just saying that because you're here.
Well, look, I know I heard you said the same exact thing to Andrew last week. No.
And I wonder, was that in the pilot? Had they talked to you about that at all, or did that develop?
So when I first read the pilot, besides being a 60-year-old man, the kind of the end reveal in the pilot was, Don is leaving the office and the camera is following him, but it passes by me in this back office making out with another guy. and you're like, oh wait, what? And I love that. I was like, oh, this is like this character is way more layered or different than what you expect. Because when you first meet him, he feels a little bit like a Wall Street bro, something that you would see in like Wolf of Wall Street or Wall Street the movie. And I feel like that face value of him was kind of fun because they're like, oh, if that's true, if he is in the closet, then what else is true? And that's how I got the idea to wear a wig. I was like, I want to wear a wig because it's like, this is a guy who's not comfortable in his own sense of self, so he's like wearing this wig, and that's like one of the many lies that he has going on. So
I love when he goes to his boyfriend, his secret boyfriend's party, and he's not wearing the wig and he's dressed in like his comfortable clothes, but yet he's almost more uncomfortable like that than he is in his disguise.
Well, yeah, because it's sort of like, this is 1987, so being gay is not an acceptable thing, especially, well, I should say being gay in this world of Wall Street is not an acceptable thing. And I feel like he is, just trying, he's a man kind of caught between two worlds. It's like I feel like we were talking about this when we were doing it, like he's probably a little bit older than, the people at that party where his boyfriend is. And,
he's not an actor. They're all actors and artists. He's just a banker or a stock trader.
He's a trader who's an older guy who is trying to fit in with a bunch of like 20-year-olds who are, just open, and they're the people that are ultimately leading our future now. It's just sort of like at that time, he's a man kind of caught between two worlds.
And then there's also the idea is like if you've been wearing a mask for years and you take that mask off, you might be more uncomfortable without the mask.
How do you act? It's like we had a whole scene, I think the way it was originally going to play out, and it plays a little bit here, was, he's wearing his wife's clothes because he doesn't have clothes that he views are like cool and hip, so he kind of puts together an outfit. And it's the first time he's ever, let himself be free, and that's when he gets busted by the SEC. And we always wanted to kind of do a thing with this character where every time he's up, you're just pulling him right back down. And we kind of changed it a little bit because we wanted the reveal. We didn't want the SEC to know exactly what was going on with him or for him to feel like they knew what was going on with him. So until in that episode they find out, or he was revealed to him that he was gay, and he's like, oh, now they know my biggest secret. So then he starts wearing a wire.
How involved in the writing are you of the show?
David Casp, who co-created the show with Jordan Cahan, I know him for a long time, and they were really great about talking about the character. The story was mapped out from the very beginning, but I think we were very much about trying to create the most rounded version of this character. For me, I wanted to approach it in a way that was, truthful and real, and felt like it wasn't like a stereotype. It was something that felt like you can actually have some heart to it, because I do go to some crazy places in the season, and you have to kind of buy it. If you didn't have if you weren't like grounded in it, I think it would all kind of fall apart. So there were just like kind of subtle finessings at certain points. They had everything, the jokes and the plot, but they really let us like help define the character. And I think all good showrunners are kind of like that.
Now, I honestly can't imagine that you guys improvise too much on the show at all, because it's so tight.
You're kind of right. Yeah, we did not improvise that much. I think that, the show is, written very, everything is like very succinct. And the only time we've kind of opened up the show is to find alt or find like some looseness in the scenes. When I was on Veep last year, Dave Mandel, who is running that show, taught us or taught me something that I've taken with me on anything I've worked with, which is the idea of keeping it loose, like, making it sloppy. Like, you have all the lines, you're going to do all the lines, but can you just like kind of fill it in? Have there be pauses, make it not feel super written. And I think that's what we kind of brought to this show, is just like having
especially
moments, but not like going off. We're going to do a rant here about cell phones,
Well, that's so important with television, right? Because you don't have any time to really rehearse. So as soon as you go in, you're kind of just doing what's on the page, and maybe you have ideas for how it's done. But the first time, that's oddly going to come off like even more scripted than if you had rehearsed it for a while, because you're just hitting these beats really quickly.
You're just trying to get through it. And, for a show like this where we did a few oneers, like where we do like 2.5 pages in one setup, like you have to keep it, you're just trying to make sure that you hit your lines. And the way the wording is and the way that David and Jordan write their jokes, you really have to turn the phrase the right way, or it falls flat. So you have to make sure you get it, or you're letting them down. And then you're in that position where like, I've just messed up this take 4 times in a row. So yeah, you don't want to be in that position.
What causes you to mess up a take with their writing?
Well, they have like the trickiest kind of writing, and I'm trying to remember the one line. I go to see my boyfriend who is in Starlight Express, and in Starlight Express there's a character named Rusty, and there's a song on Starlight Express called "Call Me Rusty," and I think I came in and I'm like, oh my god. I was like, they better, they're not going to call the other guy who played Rusty. Oh man, now I can't even remember. But it's like, I basically said, call me Rusty and call me like 7 times in three lines. It was like, they're not going to call back that guy after the Village Voice writes that your Call Me Rusty is better than his Call Me Rusty, and you call, or Call Me Crazy. It was like something like that, and you just want to make sure that you're getting it all out, because if you mess up one word, the joke kind of goes away.
How is it working with this cast?
It's an amazing cast.
It's an incredible cast.
Yeah. So Don Cheadle is the kind of the master of the whole thing. When I read the script, I think you could read it one way and you feel like, oh, this is maybe like Anchorman. It's a big, bold, brash kind of big character. And I think Don came in right from the start going like, no, I want to ground it. I want this character to feel real. And that's what he's kind of brilliant at. Like, he's all about like being truthful in the moment. Like, how does this character exist in this world? And look, there are robot butlers in this show, and apparently that was happening in the 80s, because in Wall Street, the Oliver Stone movie, there's a robot butler in that.
Glow has a robot butler
yes,
as well.
They also
right?
have a robot butler. Yeah, so
Clearly it was being done in the 80s.
robot butlers were all the craze. So no, he really kind of like grounded the tone, a lot. And then, Regina, besides being like just an amazing actress, she's so funny. Like, she's just absolutely like, I think brought so much to this character. I think everybody from the page just kind of elevated everything. And, Regina was, I think, one of the last people to sign on to the show. And so we didn't even see her at the table read. So the first time I was doing scenes with her was when we were all in that office together. And she just kind of blew me away. And then you forget, like, oh yeah, like she's in, of course she's like done all these big comedies, but she can walk this line between like saying something so dramatic and then so funny, like in the same, sentence almost. And then Andrew, I love Andrew, smart, so funny guy, but he comes from this background of Broadway where he, I think, can kind of do anything with his body too. Like, 'cause I feel like his body is as much of his performance here. Like, his character is kind of squelched this entire season, and where he goes in this final episode, you kind of see this full transformation of Blair, and he's just, just another incredibly funny guy. Every one of us, I think, comes from very different backgrounds, but we all approach the material. We all are kind of fans of each other.
And then you have a group of other comedians that are sort of around you in the, like Horatio Sands, right?
Yes, Horatio Sands from Saturday Night Live and Good News, and Yasser Lester, who was a writer on Girls, and he was in that show Making History at Fox. So super funny. Then you have Casey Wilson from Happy Endings. You have, oh my gosh.
Recent guest of How Did This Get Made recently.
Yes. She was just on a recent episode of the show and a good friend. And everyone on the show is just fantastic across the board. Paul Rust came in from Love on Netflix, and Neil Campbell was one of my favorites. Did one of my favorite scenes in the entire show, which was a sexual harassment seminar in 1986, which is the most kind of offensive thing. It's like, these are people that are trying to give a good sexual harassment seminar, but just kind of missing the mark.
What was like one of the jokes in that was like, it's not sexual harassment if she's above a certain age and not attractive.
It was like anything below, it was like anything below the belt is off limits, but everything above the belt is fair game. And anyone who is super ugly is fine to hit on because they need it. Like, it was like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a really it was a crazy scene. We got to shoot like so many alts of that, which I think the scene ends with Horatio literally humping the mannequin that we were using to show what was appropriate and not.
One of the things that I love about Black Monday, that I loved right from the first time I watched it, was that I feel like so often television shows, comedies, are really afraid of stakes and having their characters, like driving their characters really far. And it's really nice to watch a show that is not scared of being a television show.
Well, here's the thing, right? And what I love about Black Monday is you see all these like these half-hour shows, and they're called like dramedies, right? And they're not dramatic, nor are they funny. They're just like a weird little thing where it's like, oh, that was nice. It's like the last thing I want to do is like watch something that's like nice. I want to watch something that I feel like I'm invested in.
I've got like an hour a week to watch something for my personal self. Like, I want something that's going to blow me away.
Yeah, I want to be able to like have a reason to tune back in. And so what I really loved about this show is they built in the stakes. They knew all the things. It wasn't like, let's figure it out. It was to them, the story was kind of the king of the thing. It's like, so everything was working towards building the story. And I really like that, and I think it pays off. So much so that, similarly to Breaking Bad, at the end of the season, I don't know where we go. Like, we're going to find out who crashed the stock market. We're going to find out who killed themselves. In the first episode, you see a body drop going through the Lambo Limbo, which is a half Lamborghini, half limousine. And you're going to find out, and that is going to have giant stakes that are going to reverberate throughout the entire cast. I think a season 2 of the show, you don't come back to the same world. You know, you have to the character is going to go forward. And that's, for me, to be able to do a comedy and do that with the stakes of drama is like the best of both worlds.
Speaking of watching stuff, you guys have been doing How Did This Get Made for how long now?
I don't know. For about 200 episodes. So,
wow.
So yeah, it's been a long time, and I guess maybe like 400 because we don't do an episode every single week. We do like in between episodes as well.
The
mini episodes.
Yeah, the mini episodes.
So,
have you gotten sick of it yet?
No, because we don't do that many of them. Like, I think that's the secret of it. Like, we do 2 episodes a month. That's 2 bad movies a month.
Bad movies. That's not bad.
Which is about all that we can take. I mean, when you watch The Snowman, and The Snowman is this Michael Fassbender movie where the lead character's name is Harry Hole. Harry Hole is said seriously and dramatically the entire time. The movie makes no sense. Even the director's like, yeah, it didn't really make sense. And that's what I love about these movies.
Is that said in the commentary? The director says
the director has been out and like, yeah, we didn't quite stick the landing on this one. It didn't really work.
Is it the same director as The Tourist?
No, it's the same director. Another great movie. No, it's the same director of like Let the Right One In. A really fantastic director.
I'm confusing my director. Because the guy who did The Tourist was the guy who did that The Lives of Others, which was like a big foreign movie, and then he bombed with The Tourist. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I just feel like something just didn't connect. It felt like someone said, "Hey, we have a tax credit in Norway. Can you make a movie in a week?" And someone's like, "Yeah, we'll do it." And it's just you can't follow it. They've cast certain actors that look alike, but the movie jumps around from past to future. So you're like, wait, is that? I had to take out a notebook to be like draw like graphs to understand what was going on here. I'm like, I don't even know what's happening.
What's been the toughest movie to get through?
Oh, that's a good question. They're all. I would say that maybe the better question for me is what's the best one to get through? Because you remember the good ones. Like I've slogged through so many bad ones. I mean, Last Airbender, M. Night. I'm sorry, but that's a rough movie. I mean, I was like, ooh, it's like all the time I feel like I'm watching the movie, pausing it and going, only 15 minutes? Yeah. I'm in it for 15 and I got 2 hours left. And all these bad movies are pushing 2 hours. I'm like, guys, let's trim it up. If you have a bad movie, let's clock in at 88 minutes. That's all we need, just like the Bus and Speed.
And it's different than how it started for you guys, because I feel like when you started the show was like, how did this get made in terms of like, this movie's so bad, it's great.
Yes.
Almost so it's entertaining to watch. And now you've had to sort of get into this place where you're just in the muck.
Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we miss out, but like for every Snowman, there is a movie like Miami Connection, which is an amazing movie directed by a guy who ran a dojo who wanted to make a movie. He had all this Orlando money. The movie's called Miami Connection, even though it takes place in Orlando. It's about cocaine, ninjas, and rock bands. It's unlike anything that you've ever seen.
Have it on DVD. It's amazing.
It's amazing. The music performances alone are worth it.
One of my favorite episodes was Bloodsport. That is
Kumite.
Maybe my favorite bad movie of all time. I think because I grew up with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme doesn't know how to make a bad movie. He knows how to make good bad movies.
It's true.
Yeah, every one of his movies is not good, but except for the JCVD. But yeah, they always are funny. Like Time Cop. Amazing, like the bad guy is like Ron Silver, like it's like who's a match for like Jean-Claude Van Damme? It's like but no, Bloodsport is an amazing movie. You get to see his buns, which are in every one of the JCVD movies. The splits, always finding a reason to do splits. Someone shoots at him, he puts it up on the counter, like
jumps up and hits the splits.
There's like and at the end you can tell that they're just getting bored. They're like, how do we get his ass into this, and how does he do splits? All right, maybe we'll hose him down. We'll hose him down. Yeah, all right, we'll do that. Like we put a compilation reel online at Movie Bitches where you can kind of see all of his ass shots, and they get lazier and lazier as they go on.
Have you done Hard Target?
No, it's on our list.
Okay.
Hard Target. I'm very excited for Hard
That's 'cause
Target.
there's an argument to be made for that to be the best American-made John Woo movie.
I have heard
argument by me, but then there's Face Off. But there's something about Hard Target that's like it's sort of like the B-side that no one talks about it.
No, Hard Target is kind of like, it's that era where Jean-Claude was rocking a mullet, like in a very like kind of sexy way,
Fritz Boudreau, I believe his name is in the movie.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about all these movies. Like Schwarzenegger is like a cop in a border town, and it's like, but they don't ever address his accent. It's like, what is this Austrian man doing here? What is this French man doing here? Who's like, and they're always like, and they always are trying to convince you they're the most American person. It's like, I am the best American you'll ever meet. It's like, oh wait, hold on. Like, yeah, I've lived in Texas my whole life. It's like, no, you haven't. Like, you haven't. It's a lie. I don't trust you as the hero. You're lying to me.
I always remember in Commando, which is my favorite Schwarzenegger movie, that there's a throwaway line as to why he has his accent. In the beginning of the movie, it goes, "When I was a boy in Brockenwurst, East Germany," and then it's never talked about again for the rest of the movie. Someone at least was like, we have to say it.
We just gotta like bring it out there. Yeah, you can't do it. I mean, they're basically acting like Dorit on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's like, what is his accent? You're not British, but yet you affect the British accent. No one asks her about it. But
are you still a huge Real Housewives fan?
I mean, I am a big Housewives fan. I've been really caught up in the season of Beverly Hills with the dog drama. I mean, who gave the dog? Who lied? LVP? What's going on? I need to know. I'm all in. It was kind of through like osmosis. Like my wife watched every show, and I was like, I don't like this stuff, and then I'm now just suckered into it all.
Right, that happens. You're kind of like, what's that? She did. Okay, hold on. Let me sit down.
Right,
I'll watch some of this. Yeah. You're also in the midst. You wrote a comic series, right?
So I've written a handful of books for Marvel, comic books for Marvel, and right now I'm in the middle of a mini series called Cosmic Ghost Rider Destroys Marvel History, and kind of celebrating Marvel history through this character, Cosmic Ghost Rider, who is Ghost Rider and the Punisher combined.
Wow.
Real deep nerd shit. And he is going back to the day before his family was killed, the Punisher's family was killed, and he's kind of dealing with his family, kind of checking in on them. And through checking in on them, he's telling them stories about what he's done in his life, and they involve kind of messing up the Marvel timeline.
Now, this is going to sound like a pejorative question, but I don't mean it to be. Are you an adult who read comic books, or when you started working on this, did you have to go back?
I am an adult who reads comic books, and I grew up with comic books a little bit, but I wasn't like fully into them until college, and I started reading like all these great books that I felt like. I was like, oh, you can do this in comic books? Like, there was a story that I think I first kind of fell in love with, which is called Astro City, and it just took the perspective of a supervillain, like a Mr. Freeze kind of supervillain, and then told it in a very dramatic way, like what this guy's life was like in jail and then acclimating to society again and trying to get a job. And I was like, wow, this is like a totally different take on what I thought comic books could be. And then reading other funny ones like Damage Control, which is just the people who clean up the building destruction after superheroes destroy the city. And I was like, oh, there's so many great ways to kind of approach comic books. And then reading all these great writers like Ed Brubaker, who's just a great noir writer, and he just happens to do his work in graphic novels. But it's as great as like Dashiell Hammett. It's like, and he wrote a thing called Gotham PD or Gotham Central, where it's basically The Wire in Gotham. Batman's never in it. It's just the cops, and it's great. So that really got me into this idea of like what comic books could be. And so I got to be a fan as an older person, and now I'm a much bigger fan because I can read all my comic books on an iPad and no one will judge me in public. So that's what I feel really good about it.
How did you start writing them?
I had written this movie, and everyone's like, you'll never make this movie. It's way too expensive. It was like a sci-fi comedy, and
Never got made?
Never got made, and this like comic book the publisher said, hey, if you ever have any broken scripts, we can make them into a comic. And so me and my partner who wrote the script, we developed it into a comic. It was called Aliens vs. Parker. And Marvel saw that and asked us to come and write for Deadpool and then for Spider-Man and then for Guardians of the Galaxy. And we just kind of grew in that way.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
We have a couple questions from the audience. What do we got here? Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
You already mentioned a couple other movies and shows that take place in the 80s, and of course Black Monday does. And I was wondering what you thought the reason was that we kind of have this cultural fascination with that time period, and particularly Wall Street, why we keep going back to it and wanting to explore that era and that culture.
First of all, great question, and the most poised question I've ever seen. You came up there and hit it in a way I was like, wow, all right, I felt like this is like, I think what we talk about with the show all the time is like, it's 1986, like look how far we haven't come, in a way, like I think that we feel like we've really, changed as a culture. I think our technology has changed more than our points of view in society, and so I think it's close enough to feel accessible. Like when you watch something like, The Knick or even Mad Men, it's like, oh, well, I can't identify with that. I don't know that. That's not even, like my parents weren't even in the 60s. My parents were more, of the 70s and 80s. So I think there is a little bit of like, it is so kind of close to us. And there is this element of the 80s where people kind of just did what they wanted, and I think it's kind of fun to be like, wow, we were like animals just a little while ago, and like here, like in New York City. So I think it's a fun way to kind of look back. We can judge it, but then also kind of see like where we have kind of come and where we kind of need to do better in a way.
Thank you.
People will even look at the 90s and think that in some ways.
Yeah, I think the 90s seems like lacking of any real like energy, right? Like the 80s at least feel like people are doing cocaine and going for it, and like the 90s are like we were watching Friends and Hootie and the Blowfish. It's like I feel like the 90s don't have like a seedy underbelly to it. It was like we were drinking Zima, and it's like so I feel like the 80s still has like a little bit of this energy that's a little like we're rich, we're gonna party like rock stars even though we're not famous, and we don't have any of that cachet. There's like an energy of like wanting to look the best and thinking everything was cool. I think 90s we started to realize where we were a little bit. And I do want to point out one thing on this poster design. This is one thing that makes me laugh. The show is Wall Street, Black Monday. Where is it? 48th Street. No one just could put like Wall Street there. Like the show is literally about Wall Street. You put 48th, like everyone knows 48th Street, New York. That's where it happens. The weirdest choice of anything not to Photoshop out that 48th Street.
You think someone was asked about that and they're like, eh.
I just feel like it's a show about Wall. It was like whenever we did league posters. If you look at the league posters, they're the dumbest thing. Like we're always like wrestling over a trophy and in like a football formation. And I was like, why are we always like in a football formation? The show is about fantasy football, but we can have like a funny thing. And they're like, no. People want to see you guys in post huddle. It's like, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't think anyone tuned in for like our great football posturing. Like, yeah. Like,
even for like your commentary on football and
yeah.
I always got the sense that everybody who was on that show and worked on the show knew nothing about football.
I don't think we knew as much as our characters for sure. But yeah, it's always funny. Whoever's designing the posters, I mean, clearly they blocked me out because I was standing right behind Don's shoulder. But you can see me just a little bit. But yeah, 48th Street is 42nd Street I'd have less of an issue with it. 57th I would even have less, but 48th, what a random intersection you've picked in the city. All happened in a 48th. Like, what is he, blocking the M&M store?
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you don't know. It's like it takes place on the Wall Street, but this poster is from this scene where they were at the TKTS booth picking up tickets.
They
for
all wanted to go see Godspell really bad. They're waiting online. And like, because I think the idea is like, oh, Don's on his way to work, and so is Andrew, and so is Regina. On 48th Street. Like,
all
oh, wait, we got off at the wrong stop. The unlimited bread bowl, we gotta get it. The font is so good, everything is so good. 80s, 48th. I feel like it's like when you find out the poster designer be like, it's my favorite number. 8 is a good number. It's about, just society and it's cool, yeah.
And someone asked him to change. He's like, I'm under deadline. Okay.
I guess gotta get this in. I gotta get this in. The show's about Wall Street. There is no street called Wall Street in the city. Oh, there is? Not too late.
Yeah. One more question.
Oh.
Hey there.
Hi.
Oh.
Hey, I was wondering if you could talk about your hustle, sort of getting into comedy and writing in your 20s, almost like before Human Giant.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. So I started off here in New York City at a group or a theater called Upright Citizens Brigade. And Upright Citizens Brigade is this improv theater. And when they first started out, it was on the 5-story walk-up of a hardware store. There was no signage out front. There was maybe like 20 people in the audience, and you were watching these amazing people do this style of improv that I had never seen before. I was doing improv where it was like, like whose line is it anyway? It was very kind of like cheesy and corporate. It was like team building exercises. And when I saw UCB, it was this amazing like explosion of like one suggestion. We'll improvise for 40 minutes, and you do so much fun stuff. And I wanted to immediately get involved with them. And so I was very lucky to get involved there, and everybody else who was getting involved there were equally minded. They were like, I just am so enamored by this style of comedy. It wasn't like, I want to be on TV shows or I want to be on SNL. It was like, I just want to do this style of comedy. And so we kind of formed this real unit there, and we were doing shows 5 nights a week. And my experience obviously is very different than where it is now or through other people. But I think what I learned and what I got out of that was find like-minded people that you like to perform with or do stuff with, and let them challenge you. Let them critique you. And critique is different than even criticism. It's sort of like, let people like say, no, you know what, maybe you can make this joke a little bit better, or you can do this. Like, whatever you're doing, it's sort of like make your own group, and then that group will kind of keep you afloat, because I think in comedy or in anything, isolation is hard. It's like, you're grinding away. And one of the things I learned early on was you make your own stuff. And we would make our own stuff. We would cast each other in our stuff. We would direct each other in our stuff. We would run lights for each other. We'd go out and flyer with each other. Like, it was a team building experience. So you weren't ever alone. And we were able to kind of, draft off each other. And so, the UCB believe in this idea of like throwing the rope down to the people below them. And I think we continue that. And when the UCB got their TV show, they threw the rope down. We got to do Conan. I got to lie in the street, in the bloody street of the meat market there. But that was amazing. Like, all of a sudden, like, to make, whatever it is, $200 to do a Conan bit and be on TV. I had no lines, of course, but it was like great. And then that led to other opportunities, and that led to other opportunities. And then, as you support other people, they support you, and you may support somebody who's younger than you who kind of goes on. And, it's all a little bit of luck, but at the end of the day, the people I'm performing with right now, to this day, are the people I've been working with for 15 years, on some level. And that's kind of amazing to me. It's like, and I think that aligning yourself with people so your success is kind of a collaborative in a way is a good thing. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Before I let you go, I just remembered, I'm curious what you think about this. Your podcast partner, who you've known for an extremely long time, a poster was released last week.
Oh my gosh,
of
yes.
him in John Wick 3.
Yes.
The Zook in
Yes.
John Wick 3. What is that like to see? I mean, there's success and everybody gets it, but then there's
being in John Wick.
Yeah.
I mean, look, now that he's in John Wick, I have to throw down the gauntlet. Where's my camera? Which camera should I go to?
Go here. Where?
To 2? I'm going to go to 2.
Okay.
Now that he's in, am I on the wrong camera? I'm on the wrong camera. I'm on the, which one?
I don't know. Which camera should he go
3.
to?
I'm going to 3.
Okay.
All right. Here's my gauntlet. Jason Mantzoukas, now that you're in John Wick, you have thrown down the gauntlet. I need to be in Fast and Furious or Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw 2 preferably, but Fast and Furious, I'll take it, okay? Let's get in. I want to drive a car with Vin Diesel. I want to be punched by The Rock. Let's do this. I can hack. Yeah. No, Jason being in John Wick is the best. He plays the TikTok man.
Yeah.
And, look, John Wick is my favorite kind of movie. Jason and I geek out of it. I mean, Jason and I recorded a 30-minute podcast where we geeked out about the Hobbs and Shaw trailer. That was 2 minutes. All right, so we did 28 more minutes on a 2-minute trailer. I love it.
Hobbs and Shaw trailer is pretty awesome.
It's the best.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's pretty
Because
great.
these guys are running down buildings with no, they're just running down like, how do you do it? And they don't seem stressed out about it at all. They're driving tanks through the city. They're
like
having fun.
one-liners as they're running down the building. Yeah.
I mean, Jason Statham, this is the Jason Statham that we have been promised. This is the Rock that we want to see. I think they all have a thing in, then they're fighting a robot, which is Idris Elba is like a robot man. He's like, bullets don't hurt me. Okay, what?
Right, they just finally brought the superhero element into it.
They are superheroes. This is like this. People don't recognize that Fast and Furious has been doing the Avengers for like the last 3 years undercover. Yeah. They just don't have. Yeah, the Marvel universe and the Fast and Furious universe. That's the world that we're living in. That there are 2 competing universes.
Which Fast and Furious movie was it where I think it's Jason Statham and The Rock beat each other with like massive monkey wrenches in the
Oh yeah, that
face?
was the last one. That was I
like
think,
a solid
8.
7 minutes.
Yeah, they hate each other, but now they're friends. But here's the deal. Jason Statham did kill a member of the Fast and Furious team. Straight up
family.
murdered him. Yeah, justice for Han. And he murdered Han straight up in cold blood, and now they all work together. And also, we're in a world where The Rock, besides eating coffee right out of a Folgers can, like he's like, I don't even have time to brew it. I need to scoop it into my mouth. He is some sort of a cop. I don't know. He has a badge of some kind. He can commandeer cargo planes. Is now teamed up with a known criminal. I don't know. I'm in. I'm all in. Yeah, it's a tenuous timeline.
Wick or Fast and Furious? Where do you stand?
Oh boy, you're really asking me to pick between my two children there. Look, I think for the sheer volume of films, if you're putting me on a deserted island, I'm going to have to pick the Fast and Furious franchise. I mean, John Wick is incredibly beautifully directed and stylishly cool and just entertaining. But at the end of the day, that's all about headshots, and Fast and Furious is all about family. I got to pick my family.
Paul Scheer, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.